Welcome back from the ad break. So we're going to continue with our lesson. As mentioned, the lesson is unethical and unprofessional business practices. So we're going to start with our journey. Our journey starts from unethical business practice right up to unprofessional business practice. So with unethical business practice, we're going to unpack the following: the challenges, and then we get to the strategies. Now, you mustn't forget, for every challenge, there is a strategy. As a business, we have to recommend strategies. Right, so unethical business practice goes as follows. These are the business practices: unethical, unfair advertising. You've got pricing of goods, not just pricing of goods in rural areas, very important. Then we've got taxation or tax evasion. I still say I use PUT to remember this. The unethical business practice, the acronym is PUT. P, pricing of goods in rural areas. U for unfair advertising. And then T for taxation or tax evasion. Right, let's start. Right, we've got unfair advertising as mentioned. But please take note, false advertising will no longer be credited instead of unfair advertising. Please do not confuse the two concepts. The right concept is unfair advertising, but false advertising is not credited. It will not be credited at all. So there is unfair advertising and not false advertising. What is unfair advertising, or the examples of unfair advertising? Right, it says here giving goods deceptive names or false labeling. So you need to be honest when you are labeling your goods and not be deceptive. Right, like selling secondhand goods as a new good. Why? Because you want to make profit, and then you tell people that this is a new good, whereas it's not new, it is a secondhand. So if it's secondhand, you need to mention that to customers instead of deceiving them. Right, so we've got exaggerating the merits, or you can say the benefits of the product, or false promises. So you need to be honest again. Do not exaggerate. You do not exaggerate. It doesn't matter how much you want to make profit, but you need to be honest and not exaggerate the merits of the products or give them false promises. Right, using fine print to conceal. What is to conceal? To cover important information. You must not do that. Customers must see exactly what they are buying. Right, the last one is criticizing competitors' goods. Only focus on your product, advertise your product, and do not speak bad about a competitor's product or competitor's good. It is unethical to do so. It's product A, forget product B. You rather call it product B instead of mentioning it and speaking about it and how bad it is. Just focus on your product. So criticizing competitors' goods is unfair advertising, which is unethical. Right, to go to the second one, which is pricing of goods in rural areas. Take note, in rural areas. What do you know about rural areas? You find that my house is here, but the shop is like 2 kilometers away, 3 kilometers away, 10 kilometers away from my house. So pricing of goods in rural areas can be unethical, but how do they do that? How do businesses get to be unethical about it? For example, they inflate prices. By exploiting people, you exaggerate your prices, or you price them to be so ridiculous. Right, and then like charging higher for goods of inferior quality in rural areas. Why? Because you know that that product is very scarce in the rural area. Therefore, you're charging higher for that good or for that product. Businesses may experience a decline or a drop in sales due to high costs that are added to the price of the final product. So those are examples of pricing of goods in rural areas. Remember, it is an unethical business practice. Right, we move on to taxation or tax evasion. What is taxation and what is tax evasion? Taxation or tax evasion rather, as an unethical business practice. These are businesses that do not declare all their income to SARS. So you're basically falsifying the information or falsifying the business statements. You're telling them false information in order for you to avoid paying tax. Say your financial statement, your income or your profit it's, let's say, 100,000, but you just declare to SARS that you only get 1,000 rand, or you're not even declaring all your income to SARS. Why? Because you want to avoid tax, or to evade tax, rather, not avoiding, but evading. Please take note, you should be able to identify the above mentioned business practices from the statements or scenarios. So don't forget our PUT. These are our unethical business practices, but remember, for every challenge, there is a strategy. We're going to get to it just now. Right, so we still continue with our journey. We are now going to do the challenges. We are done with the examples. Right, the challenges, unfair advertising. These are the challenges of unfair advertising, by the way. Unfair advertising could be harmful to consumers. Remember, you're unfair, you are giving them deceptive names and all that. The use of false or misleading statements in advertising, it leads to misrepresentation of the product or the concerned product, which can do what? It can negatively affect the customers. Businesses can make unwise advertising. Why? Because they are under pressure to increase their profit. So that could be a challenge. We are under pressure, therefore we're making unwise advertising choices. Right, so as I said, for every challenge, there is a strategy. Unfair advertising strategies should be correctional or positive rather than punitive. We're not punishing anybody, but the whole point of coming up with a strategy is to correct the things that we've made, or all those challenges. Right, so what are the strategies for unfair advertising? Consumers must report unfair advertising, but where are they reporting? To the Advertising Standards Authority. That's the first thing that they can do. Secondly, businesses should be encouraged to do what? To keep their advertising fair and in line with the Constitution. Remember, we should not be exploiting the consumers. Right, businesses must know and understand the code of advertising as determined by the ASA. What does ASA stand for? Advertising Standard Authority, and we should apply the regulation. So we need to comply basically by what ASA says as a business. Right, then we go to the second part, which is pricing in the rural areas. Remember, said, take note, pricing in the rural areas. Right, so some businesses in the rural areas, they exploit their customers by adding much more than necessary to their prices. So we are exploiting them because we understand that they are vulnerable, they don't really have money, or they stay far away from the businesses. So what we do, we are exploiting them. How do we do that? Right, like by charging unfair prices. Some consumers in rural areas have little economic power and they are vulnerable to exploitation. Little economic power, they are unemployed. As you know, the unemployment rate is very high right now. It's over 30%. So now some consumers in rural areas have little economic power. Probably they're not working. Therefore, as a business, by exploiting them, you are being unfair or unethical rather. Right, businesses may form monopolies, meaning only one supplier in the rural areas, and increase their prices unilaterally. What does that mean? Without consulting anybody, basically. It may be common practice to pay higher prices for goods of inferior quality in rural areas, but what is the strategy? Work together with the suppliers. Why? So that you can share delivery costs in remote rural areas. So you're working with suppliers, not alone, so that there are many suppliers, but we have one, so that we can share other. We're working together with all the suppliers to share the delivery costs in those remote rural areas. Businesses can buy in bulk to get a discount, but because to avoid charging high prices. Remember, the reason why you're charging high is because wherever you're buying or you're stocking your products, it's far. So when you come back, you also want to make profit, and in order for you to make profit, you have to charge. But so when you are buying, or when you're going to buy your stock, you rather go there and buy in bulk so that you can be able to be in a better position to negotiate your discounts. Charge fair or market-related prices for goods and services. Fair or market-related. Don't be ridiculous in your charging or in charging the prices. Right. The last challenge is taxation. All right, so remember we said taxation or tax evading. So here you're falsifying the financial statements in order for you not to pay tax. So businesses may pay heavy fines for evading tax. It is unethical. It is also illegal to evade tax. Tax evasion may negatively impact on the business's image. Imagine now we are all over the newspaper to say this business has not been paying tax, or they were evading tax, or they've submitted wrong information, or they did not declare all their income to SAT. So it's a negative image. It portrays a negative image, and no investor would want to invest in such a business that is known of doing bad, basically. Right, the accountant may charge high fees for falsifying financial statement, because definitely you need an accountant to assist you with doing this. And sometimes we call this cooking the books or the finances of the business, but still you have to cough up a lot of money to have that done for you as a business. Businesses may lose their key stakeholders. We're talking about investors again. If the act of tax evasion is reported, who would want to invest in a business that does the wrong things? Nobody. Some businesses submit fraudulent or incorrect returns to SARS, which results to penalties. Right. Again, for every challenge, there are strategies. Businesses may not be familiar with the latest changes in tax legislation, so that is a serious challenge. Then we go to strategies, like I said. VAT needs to be charged on vettable items. Remember what? VAT, value added tax. Submit the correct tax returns to SARS on time. Timelessly, it's very important that you submit, and not just submit your tax returns, but they should be correct. Very important. All products should be correctly invoiced and recorded. Disclose all sources of income for tax payment purposes. Disclose. You need to state everything that you are earning in a business. If you've got multiple streams of income, you need to disclose all of that for tax payment purposes. So we've covered our unethical business practice. So we're going to go for a quick ad break, and when we come back, we continue with our journey. Thank you. See you just now.